Good afternoon, and I do appreciate your patience. I thank all of you for coming to the final year-end press conference. We've done these consistently throughout the years around this time of year, and I've always found it helpful for me and for the folks around the state. I do want to start by thanking all these wonderful men and women who are gathered around me. They are an extremely dedicated and competent group of public servants who have served our state extremely well, and I could not be more proud of each of them. I thank them individually, I thank them collectively, and I appreciate the fact that my cabinet, my administration looks like the state of Louisiana, and I believe it has always served us well. And also gathered around me at the moment is my wife, our first lady, who has done a wonderful job as well. She continues to inspire me each and every day. And of course, this one is a little emotional because, as with everything these days, I'm doing this obviously for the last time. And I want to start by paying a compliment to the media as well. There have obviously been times when I had a little difference of opinion about something in the way that you may have covered it or whatever. But over the years, I have always felt that it's very, very important to have folks in the media who will present communication to the public. And you do a very important job. You do it well, and I really thank you for that. I also want to wish all the people around our great state a wonderful, blessed Merry Christmas this year. I am praying that 2024 will be the best year ever for our people and for our state. I'm gonna get started on the press conference now, and I want to say we simply could not have met the challenges that have been presented to us. We could not have delivered the progress without these wonderful men and women around me. And I really believe that the entire state should be very proud of their efforts. Every single one of my cabinet agencies, in conjunction with my office, prepared reports that tell the story of the work that they've done since 2016. And the reports are entitled Challenges Met, Progress Delivered. You can read them on our website, and I'm sure my communication staff will also be happy to send you a copy if you all ask. You know this, a lot's happened over the 8 years that I have been governor. But I will tell you, by just about any metric you can come up with, and objectively speaking, we are much better off today than the day that I took office. And you know, we all have our goal, no matter what we do, is to leave things better than we found them. I am absolutely confident that is happening when I leave on January the 8th. When I took office, the state had a $2 billion budget deficit and $400 million in the stabilization fund. I'll be leaving office with $3.2 billion in 2 reserve accounts, a balanced budget that adequately invests in our most critical priorities. Last year, we ran a $300 million surplus. The REC just last week acknowledged both more money in the current fiscal year and more money for next fiscal year. And so the budget that is currently in place includes a $2,000 pay raise for teachers and a $1,000 pay raise for school support workers, and that brings the total teacher pay increase in our state since 2019 to $5,300, and school support workers to $2,650. Significant funding for early childhood education. In fact, I can tell you it's the most ever state general fund invested in early childhood education in our state's history in the current budget year. Major investments in higher education, including, over the time that I've been here, an increase of $465 million in recurring state general fund for operations. a huge change because we had actually disinvested in higher education before I became governor more than any other state in the nation. That was the principal reason that I ran for governor when I did. A permanent supplemental pay increase for law enforcement and firefighters, historic investments in roads and bridges and ports and other infrastructure, historic payments to reduce our debts, like the unfunded accrued liability of our pension systems, to pay all of the judgments that we had, to close out the Road Home program, to meet our obligations under the non-federal match requirements for the Hurricane Storm Damage Risk Reduction System and so forth. And I'm also very proud to say that the unemployment rate in our state is the lowest ever measured at 3.3% as we speak. The lowest ever measured, and is well below the national average. Also proud to tell you that in the most recent quarter, Louisiana's gross domestic product grew at a greater pace than 40 other states. Our growth rate was 3.2%. The national rate is 2.1%. We're making monumental investments in critical infrastructure. Over the course of the 8 years, we've allocated nearly $5.5 billion to more than 2,000 infrastructure projects around the state, including nearly 7,000 miles of road improvements. Over $10.1 billion in bipartisan infrastructure law and Inflation Reduction Act funding has been announced for Louisiana. Specifically, we've received $1.29 billion for resilience of infrastructure, much of which is allocated to Louisiana's coasts through grants to CPRA and direct federal funding for the Corps of Engineers. Louisiana, in fact, is ranked 12th in the country in resilience funding overall. Just last week, I announced Louisiana is leading the country in putting the bipartisan infrastructure law broadband funding to work. We are the very first state in the nation to receive our funding allocation. In fact, our application will be used as a model for other states. We announced the approval of $1.355 billion to ensure that we close the digital divide by 2029. We've also made progress in economic development. We've announced more than 261 economic development projects across the state, representing more than $94 billion in capital investment. We set a record this year with more than $25 billion in direct investment in Louisiana, our third straight year topping $20 billion. Since I signed an executive order in 2016 inviting local participation in the industrial tax exemption program, funding for local governments, public schools, and law enforcement has increased by $750 million. And there were some that expressed fears and concern that local involvement in the ITEP approval process would reduce capital investment in our state. Those concerns, those fears were absolutely unfounded. Through the last year of my first term, the number and value of ITEP projects in Louisiana doubled, in fact more than doubled, compared to the previous gubernatorial term. And I can tell you that pre-executive order, we averaged about $10 billion a year. Since we issued the executive order making the changes, we've averaged $25 billion a year. Louisiana's manufacturing jobs, the gold standard indicator of economic health, due to their positive ripple effect on the economy at large, ended 2022 at their highest level in 7 years. We have successfully implemented an all-of-the-above energy strategy that leveraged the Climate Action Plan, the only one in the Gulf South, I might add, to drive new energy investment while continuing to support companies meeting current demand for oil and gas. The result, Louisiana is now a global leader in the energy transition and a major international player in the booming LNG market. Economist Lauren Scott predicted that Louisiana will add 80,000 new jobs in 2024 and 2025, thanks in large part to the huge investments our state is seeing from no carbon and low carbon energy projects. We capitalized on coastal restoration efforts to establish Louisiana as an international water management industry hub anchored by the water campus in Baton Rouge. We've completed 72 projects. We've started another 82, and we procured $12.5 billion in coastal funding over the 8 years that I've been governor. we are well on track to invest more than $1 billion a year, which is the goal. Last year, in fact, was $1.3 billion. This year, it's $1.6 billion. We are diversifying our economy. We have supported investments in emerging sectors such as tech, cybersecurity, life sciences, aerospace, and reinvestments in logistics like the $1.8 billion Louisiana International Terminal container facility at the Port of New Orleans. You all will likely remember my first act as governor was to expand Medicaid. Now, more than 500,000 working Louisianans have access to health care who otherwise wouldn't. I've said many times, and I'm going to say it again today, the Medicaid expansion was the easiest big decision that I made as governor. Because of that decision, our uninsured rate is now below the national average. The state has saved money. Hospitals and other providers are better reimbursed. And in fact, not a single rural hospital has closed in Louisiana. And that is in contrast to what has happened elsewhere in the South in states that did not expand Medicaid. And we did everything that I just mentioned and so much more while overcoming some of the worst natural disasters in Louisiana history and a global pandemic. In fact, somebody counted this up. There have been over 244 emergencies, resulting in more than 50 state disaster declarations and 21 federal disaster declarations over the past 8 years. We've met every single one of those challenges, and we have delivered tremendous progress for our people. And I know that that was a lot that I just gave you, but trust me, I could have gone on for longer. I thank you for your patience. I again thank all of these wonderful men and women who are up here who worked so hard every single day to deliver for the people of Louisiana. I do hope to see all of you in my hometown on January the 3rd for my farewell address, which is scheduled to be my final public event as governor. And with that, I think I am ready to take a few questions. Yes, sir.
When it comes to criminal justice reform initiatives that's happened under your watch, what are you most concerned about seeing reversed in the next administration and progress there?
Well, what we know is the changes we made were data-driven and they were evidence-based. We know that the package of bills, I think it was 9 bills in 2017, passed with huge bipartisan majorities. Most were written by Republicans, but supported across the board. And we know that they have worked. I can't tell you what the next administration is going to do. I just would hope they would continue to look at the data, to talk to the experts, because much of the rhetoric that I heard during the campaign is just not based in reality. And we know that other states that had not done any criminal justice reforms over the previous several years actually had larger increases in crime, in violent crime, coming out of the pandemic than we did. We've already seen violent crime start to reduce around the state of Louisiana. So we would just hope that there would continue to be a commitment to data and to listening to experts. And if that happens, there won't be very much, if any, changes to our criminal justice system in the terms of reversing those reforms. So that's what I hope will happen. I'm not going to speak to my fears because I'm not in control of those decisions.
And just a quick follow-up, I just wanted to ask, what of your accomplishments that you had in office, what are you most proud of?
Yeah, well, the Medicaid expansion is huge because it delivers life-saving, life-improving health care to working poor people, people who were left out through no fault of their own. They didn't qualify for Medicaid precisely because they worked, but they didn't make enough to afford insurance. It wasn't a condition of employment. And by doing that, it was just simply the right thing. They can remain healthy and productive. They can stay in the workforce longer. They can better support their families and so forth. But we also know that it helped us address the budget challenges that we had as a state, and we have significantly increased the financial health of the hospitals and other providers. So for all of those reasons, and you all know that I'm a pro-life governor, I happen to believe that Medicaid expansion, I've said this all along, is a pro-life position as well. So there are really a number of things that is at the top of the list. Just the changes that we've made positively in the fiscal condition of this state. In case you weren't taking notes, 2 reserve accounts with $3.2 billion. That's what I'm leaving. I had a $2 billion deficit for the year that started July 1st of 2016. And we're leaving this money in the reserve accounts while delivering a budget that is both balanced but that robustly invests in our most critical priorities. And over the course of the 8 years, you've just seen us focus so much on economic growth and diversification because we wanted to make sure that we were stable enough to where these investments could continue. And certainly that is the case now. And the last point I want to make about that, because people say, well, yeah, you got all those increases in our investments in higher education, in K through 12 education, in early childhood, and healthcare, but how much have you grown our budget? Our budget in state general fund has grown at lower than the rate of inflation over the time that I've been governor. And by the way, this is in every single achievement, every single accomplishment that I mentioned has been done on a bipartisan basis. That's also something I'm very proud of, because you don't see that very much in our country. You certainly don't see it in Washington. But by definition, me being a Democratic governor, having Republican majorities in the House and the Senate the entire time, and supermajorities for part of that time, anything we did was going to have to be bipartisan. And so I thank the leaders and the members of the legislature for working with us in making these things possible. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, over the last 8 years and what you've learned about running this state, can you summarize a few of the most critical issues that Louisiana faces that really need to stay top of mind of the next administration?
Yeah, well, look, we still, despite all the progress that we've made, and I think everything that I've said is objectively verifiable and true and so forth, we still have challenges. We don't achieve the health outcomes that we would like. We don't achieve the educational outcomes. But staying the course, creating more opportunity, creating more prosperity in Louisiana, that is only possible through education. There's no other way to do it. If you don't protect your population centers from rising sea levels, from subsidence, from storms, then the future of our state is not what we would want it to be. And you can just go down, area after area. But I would encourage the next legislature, the next governor, to look at investments in our human talent, our people, as critical to our success going forward. I cannot tell you how many times I met with CEOs and they were trying to decide whether to invest money in Louisiana or elsewhere. And it came down to, at the end of the day, whether they were going to have enough employees with the requisite knowledge and skills where they knew they were going to be successful. Well, you can only have that in Louisiana through investments in education and training. And so making sure that we continue to see that as key to our future, I think is going to be critically important. But I am very confident and pleased to be able to say that we're leaving Governor-elect Landry and his administration and the next legislature in a place where these necessary investments can absolutely continue. You just saw where the REC met last week, and they increased the general fund forecast for current year and for next year, in addition to the reserve accounts and the $300 million surplus that we had last year. So these investments absolutely can and should continue. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, can you tell us a little bit about
what regrets you have from your term in office?
I don't use that word. I really don't. Now, obviously, there are some things that I wish had been done that, quite frankly, didn't get done, and some of the things that we were able to do, even though I think at the end of the day were positive, I wish we could have done a little differently, and I'll give you a couple of a couple of examples. I think it is a crying shame that we close out 2023 and the minimum wage in our state is $7.25 an hour. It's offensive and it's not justifiable. I think the fact that the legislature year after year refused to take that up and make changes, and similarly refused to take up the problems associated with a gender-based wage gap. We have the highest wage gap in the country between what we pay men and women who have the same education, the same experience, and so forth. And we trap a lot of women and children in poverty for no good reason other than we just don't want to pay them what they should be paid when they go to work. So to get nowhere on that, despite having bills introduced all 8 years, is something that that I'm certainly not proud of. Wish we could have done better on that, but for whatever reason, I just was not able to reach enough legislators on those issues. You know, the first year that we came in and we had to stabilize the fiscal situation, we knew that we had to do it in a balanced way, which meant some cuts but also some new revenue. I really would have preferred not to do it with the sales tax. At the end of the day, that was the only way we were going to get the votes necessary to increase the revenue. And so I accepted that, knowing, and think this has been borne out, that it was much more important to stabilize the situation, have the revenue to invest and so forth, than it was to have it done exactly the way I would have preferred it. But sales taxes, by their nature, are regressive. The good news is we have the least regressive sales tax in the country because it doesn't apply to groceries, it doesn't apply to pharmaceutical drugs, and it doesn't apply for residential utilities. But having said that, I wish we could have done that a little differently, but we didn't. But at the end of the day, that was a compromise, and it was a compromise that has served our state well. And I use that as an example of why compromise is a good thing. It's not a dirty word, but that was something that was worked out in my first term with the Republican leaders of the legislature. We're going to come here first.
Piggybacking off of that question, you named some things that you wish you accomplished or completed in office, adding exceptions to the abortion ban, eliminating the death penalty, minimum wage. I know you only have a few weeks left, but is there anything you can do or plan to do to get closer to that goals before leaving office?
Well, as you know from all of the conversations that I've had with members of the media and other organizations on my way out, we're going to continue to talk about these things. I mean, look, there's not a legislative session between now and when I leave office. We've tried many of these things over 8 years. Some of them we've tried just over the last 1 or 2 or whatever. But we're going to continue to talk about these things and why we think they're important for our state. Hopefully, that will help set the conditions for success going forward. But in terms of actions that I can take between now and at noon on January the 8th, very limited, as you know. Yes, sir.
Without being too vague, can you give us an idea, a rough idea exactly of what life will look like for you outside of the governor's mansion? Can we expect to see you out of politics completely, or will you be involved in one way or another?
Well, I can't see the facial expression on Donna right now. Donna and I both are really excited about going back home to Tangipahoa Parish. And look, we love living in this governor's mansion. She has loved every day being First Lady, and she's worked extremely hard at that job. And it is a job because she chose to make it a job even though she doesn't get paid for her work. I love the job that I've been doing, and I think it's been important, and I think we've been successful. But at the end of the day, you come here knowing that there's a really good chance you're going to serve 4 years. And if you do, you've been really lucky to be the governor and the first lady for 4 years. We actually got a chance to serve 8. The Constitution doesn't allow you to serve more than that, at least not without a break. And so we always knew we were going home. We're actually excited about it, and more excited than we could have ever imagined, because within the next couple of weeks, we will be blessed with our first grandchild. So we're going to go home, and we're going to be grandparents, and I'm going to resume a law practice, and we're going to live at home, and we're going to be just fine. But we will stay involved. She's going to continue to run her foundation that will focus on things like human sex trafficking, prevention, and awareness. Obviously, I won't be the governor this time next month, but I believe I have some things that I can say and things that I'm going to continue to want to participate in, political and otherwise. And so we're looking forward to being citizens, and again, just the opportunity that we've had to serve, it's just been extraordinary.
I think we got time for one more, yeah.
Governor, you gave us a little bit of a tease there. You say you're not going to be governor next month, but you'll still have some things to say.
Yeah.
Is that your way of hinting at a future political career? Can you give us some more details?
Yeah, no, I'm really glad I can't see Donna's face with that. Because no, I don't leave here intending to run for office again. I don't say never, because I don't know exactly what my situation is going to be like with Donna and the family. I also don't know what the situation is going to be with the state. And some people will find this hard to believe. I am genuinely pulling for Jeff Landry. I want him to do a wonderful job. He will be the governor of the same state that I have been governor of, and his constituents will be the same as my constituents, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm a Louisianan. Our grandchildren are going to be raised here. I'm going back into private business. I really want this to be successful, and so as I leave here, I don't leave intending to run again, whether it be for governor or something else, but at the same time, I just don't say never, because you don't know what the situation will be, and I guess I love our state too much. I love our people too much to see them suffer needlessly, and so while I have no expectation, no intention of running again, I can see that should my wife bless it, and the circumstance warranted that I would do that. Look, we're going to wrap it up there. Let me again thank all these people for their tremendous service. I wish you all had been afforded the opportunity that I have had to see them work hard every single day through challenging circumstances, and these are just wonderful human beings. They are great Louisianans, and I have been inspired by them every single day. And then I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, a wonderful holiday season, and the best year ever in 2024. God bless y'all.